239 teams around the country open the 2021 season. Thankful to be playing after so many of them didn't have a long season last year. The long-awaited road back to the NCAA playoffs has finally reached its commencement. I'm Brendan Gulick on NCAA.com. We are thrilled to unveil the bracket for this year's tournament, which features so many quality teams from coast to coast. It's been a long time since North Central won that 2019 national championship. Looking forward to seeing who will be the last team standing here this year. Couple housekeeping notes before we begin. This year's national championship game is on Friday, December 17th. It is at an extremely special venue, Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium in Canton, Ohio. Each of the first 4 rounds leading up to the national title game will be played on 4 Saturdays prior to the Friday championship game. It begins this coming weekend, Saturday, November 20th. Championship game will be televised live on ESPNU. National semifinal games will be on ESPN+. All other games will be broadcast by the host institutions during those first 3 rounds. We are also privileged to welcome in the chair of this year's national committee, Dewey Natz, the director of athletics from the University of Wisconsin Stout. Dewey, thank you so much for spending some time with us. First of all, congratulations on what was, I'm sure, a challenging but fun process for you. Can you give us an idea at how difficult it was to put together the bracket this year?
You know, it was a difficult time, obviously, as there's a lot of great teams across the country, especially when you start looking at which large teams, you know, to try to select and get into the tournament. But it's a process that we work through. It starts with our regional committees, with the coaches and administrators in each region, and then our national committee getting together and looking at the entire body work of all of these teams. It's a process. But we've got good people out there working hard to try to make this the best bracket that we can. So it went pretty good.
Well, we'll check back in with you at the end of the show, but thank you for all your work. And without further delay, let's introduce the 32 teams that will vie for a national championship this year. We open up our bracket reveal with one of the absolute best teams in the country, St. John's. The Johnnies haven't won the NCAA title since 2003, but they're expected to be in national contention this year. They pulled off an outstanding 29-28 win over Bethel yesterday in the snow, keeping their perfect season intact with a game-winning touchdown with just 1 second left. Johnnies turned the ball over on downs twice in the fourth quarter, with Bethel leading by 6 points. But senior quarterback Chris Backus wouldn't be denied. He found Alex Larson near the left pylon. That victory marked the largest halftime deficit an SJU team overcame to win since 1994. They'll open the playoffs hosting Lake Forest, the automatic qualifier from the Midwest Conference. First playoff appearance for the Foresters since 2002 after a perfect 10-0 regular season. Their defense has been fantastic in the red zone this year. They also sport the nation's best punt return unit. A.J. Jackson has housed 4 punt returns this season. He can change the game in the blink of an eye. He's also got 14 receiving touchdowns and averages nearly 18 yards per catch. Next team to host an opening round game will be Linfield. Welcome back to the NCAA tournament to the Wildcats, who missed the playoffs the last couple years, but won the Northwest Conference this year. They're a consensus top 10 team in the country. They'll have a rematch in the opening round when they meet Redlands next weekend. The SCIAC champs lost to Linfield back in September, but they've dominated their competition ever since then. Bulldogs are in the playoffs for the 2nd year in a row. Back in the NCAA tournament, Mary Hardin Baylor, the automatic qualifier from the American Southwest Conference. Of course, the Crusaders are in the playoffs now for a remarkable 17th consecutive time, winning it all back in 2018. They are ranked inside the top 10 in the country in 6 different statistical categories, lead the nation in red zone defense. Their opponent in the opening round is Trinity, champions of the Southern Athletic Association. Tigers have leaned heavily on their defense and ran the table this year. They're back in the playoffs for the first time since 2011. Our first of 5 highly coveted at-large berths is awarded to Birmingham Southern. The Panthers coming into the playoffs on a high note. They just posted a big 49-7 win to close the season yesterday over Millsaps, setting a program record with, 504 rushing yards. Panthers also tied a program record with 6 rushing scores in that game. They'll host Huntingdon, the opening round game, after the Hawks took the auto bid out of the USA South. bottom left quadrant of the bracket begins with a team widely considered one of the best in the country this season. It's Wisconsin Whitewater, champions of the Wisconsin Intercollegiate Athletic Conference. Warhawks have been among the last teams standing more often than not lately. They've earned 6 titles and 3 runner-up finishes between 2005 and 2014 alone. This year's Warhawks team is championship tested. They ripped through the always difficult league, undefeated for the 11th time in the last 16 years. They are the reigning national runner-up after falling to North Central last year. Hope to be in Canton on December 17th. Whitewater opens the tournament by hosting Greenville, champions of the Upper Midwest Athletic Conference. After 4 lean years in Greenville, the Panthers back in the tournament now for the 2nd straight time. Our next team is the champion from the North Coast Athletic Conference, the DePauw Tigers. Not only are they in, they host an opening round game. Despite yesterday's tough loss to Wabash for the Mononville, DePauw earned the automatic berth from the NCAC by posting an 8-1 record in league play this year. They just recently became the 20th program in Division III to win 600 games in school history. They did it in record-breaking performance over Oberlin. This is the first NCAA playoff appearance for the Tigers since 2010. They'll open things up with the Engineers of Rose-Hulman, champions in the Heartland Collegiate Athletic Conference. Boys from Terre Haute, Indiana, back in the playoffs for the first time since 2016. 4 more teams on this side of the bracket. A chance to host a first-round game for the unbeaten American Rivers Conference champion, the Central Dutch. They're back in the playoffs after playing only 2 games last year. Who could ever forget when Central beat Oshkosh in the playoffs in 2019 in an incredible opening round overtime game? It was the biggest comeback in school history. They'll try to rediscover some of that magic against a team that is sweating bullets right now. Welcome back to the NCAA playoffs to the Bethel Royals. It's an at-large bid for the Royals, who were heartbroken by St. John's yesterday in that MIAC championship game. Certainly one of the most dramatic games of the day across the country, and they probably thought their season was over, giving up that last-second touchdown. But Bethel is back in the playoffs for the 2nd time in 3 years. Steve Johnson's team is hoping for a deep run this fall. Another at-large bid coming off the board here, the Wheaton Thunder back in the playoffs for the first time under head coach Jesse Scott. Runner-up in the CCIW, lost just once this year to league champion North Central. That was back in week 2. Running back Giovanni Weeks has run for almost 1,200 yards this season and 19 rushing touchdowns. That's tied a 76-year-old school record for rushing scores in a season. Should be a fun environment for a first-round game at Wheaton because they're hosting a virtual next-door neighbor, the Aurora Spartans, champions in the NACC. After 2 tough losses to great teams to open the season, Aurora turned things around with 8 straight wins. Former Super Bowl champion receiver and Spartans head coach Don Beebe has done a great job bringing this team back into the playoffs for the 2nd time now in 3 years. Quarterback Gavin Zibelman has had a great season, guiding an offense that has scored at least 63 points now in 4 different games. All right, half the bracket is over. Time to jump to the top right-hand corner. We officially welcome back our reigning national champion, the North Central Cardinals. They won the College Conference of Illinois and Wisconsin championship again this year. #1 team in the country, according to D3Football.com. Nobody has figured out how to slow them down. They have averaged 57 points per game and 585 yards per game this year. Quarterback Luke Langdon having a great season. The Cardinals have legitimate national championship aspirations as they try to defend their crown. Their opening round opponent, it's the President's Athletic Conference champion, Carnegie Mellon. Huge accomplishment for the Tartans. Head coach Rich Lackner retiring at the end of this season. His team just had a great win in the Academic Bowl against Case Western yesterday. Carnegie Mellon's defense, one of the best in the country, allowing 9 points per game this year. That's 3rd in the nation. This is the Tartans' first PAC title since 1989 and their first NCAA playoff berth since 2006. Next on the docket, Albion, the champions from the Michigan Intercollegiate Athletic Association. First playoff appearance for the Britons since 2015. They'll get a home game to open things up. Only 2 at-large bids left, and one of them comes off the board here. Albion will host Wisconsin Lacrosse. The Eagles dropped 2 games this year, but only one to a Division III opponent. Matt Janis has done a fabulous job since taking over that program in February of 2020. They're hoping they can win a 3rd national title in program history and a 1st since 1995. Moving on, the Cortland Red Dragons hosting an opening round game. The Empire 8 champions beat Ithaca on Saturday to win the Cortica Jug. Finished their season 10-0 for just the 2nd time in program history and their 1st since 1988. Bree Segala found Derek Cruz twice in the second half, including for the game-clinching score in the 4th quarter. Head coach Kurt Fitzpatrick's defense, top 5 in the country just about any way you slice it. Cortland will play the NEWMAC champions, Springfield Pride, who are back in the playoffs for the 3rd time in 4 years. Of course, that's since they left the Liberty League to join forces now with some NEWMAC schools. They played a big first half yesterday against Catholic to win the conference title and clinch the automatic berth. It's been an especially impressive season for them. They've played 7 road games this year. Next on the bracket, it's Endicott, champions in the Commonwealth Coast Conference. 3rd straight playoff appearance for the Gulls, who are coming off their best win of the season yesterday, 37-3 over Nichols. Endicott will host RPI in the 1st round, Kings of the Liberty League. Cool story yesterday in Troy. Playing in his first collegiate football game after an All-American career with the soccer team, 5th-year senior Trevor Bisson made a 36-yard field goal as time expired. That gave the Engineers a 19-17 come-from-behind win over Union College that allowed RPI to regain the Dutchman Shoes Trophy and earn the Liberty League title. Also tied the school record with 9 regular season wins. Now 7 straight years RPI is in the playoffs. To the bottom right quadrant we go, beginning with the Mount Union Purple Raiders, champions of the vaunted Ohio Athletic Conference, the most decorated team in D3 football history. The Raiders dominated their competition throughout the season. Their opponents scored 7 points or fewer in 7 of their 10 games, including 3 shutouts. Head coach Jeff Dart, 14-0 since taking over before that pandemic-shortened season. Now the Raiders begin their quest for an unprecedented 14th national title. Their last title came back in 2017, but they were runner-up in 2018. Certainly worth noting this year's national championship game at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. It's just 18 miles from their campus. Pretty easy 25-minute drive for Purple Raider fans. They'll open the postseason by hosting Washington and Lee, champions from the Old Dominion Athletic Conference. The Generals back in the playoffs for the first time since 2017. They'll look to ride the hot hand of star running back Stephen Murin. Our next team is out on the Eastern Shore. The Salisbury Seagulls are back in the playoffs. They won the New Jersey Athletic Conference this year. In fact, ever since Sherman Wood's team joined the NCAA, they've run the show out on the Eastern Shore. Seagulls have the number 3 ranked rushing offense in the country. They've been terrific in converting 3rd downs this year. Had some pretty impressive games, but the country certainly took notice when they scored 84 points just a couple of weeks ago against Christopher Newport. 5th straight playoff appearance now for Salisbury. They'll host our final at-large bid. It's Johns Hopkins, the Blue Jays, runner-up in the Centennial Conference this season. Blue Jays are a mainstay in the national playoffs, having not missed a tournament since 2006. Johns Hopkins has one of the top offenses in the country again this season and won't have to travel far from Baltimore to open tournament play. Delaware Valley is a major threat in this year's playoffs. The Aggies hosting in Doylestown. They have the number 1 defense in the country in 6 different statistical categories. What an incredible season for the Aggies. They're peaking at the right time. They've given up 10 total points the last 5 games combined. That includes 3 shutouts. MACC champs will entertain Anna Maria in the 1st round, champions of the Eastern College Football Conference. Major tip of the cap to Dan Mulrooney and his team from Paxton, Massachusetts. This is a monumental day for their program. At 7-2 this season, Anna Maria has more wins this season than they had the last 6 seasons combined. They haven't won more than 2 games in a year in the last 12, and now they're in the national playoffs. Last 2 teams in the bracket. Both auto bid conference champions, Muhlenberg, won the Centennial Conference this year. They're hoping for a similar performance during their incredible run in that 2019 playoffs when they went all the way to the national semifinals. Also won a couple playoff games the year prior. The Mules locked up their bid yesterday with a very impressive 55-0 win over Moravian. Don't sleep on their kickoff return unit either. It's the best in the nation. John Washington brought one back for a TD just a few weeks ago. The Mules will host Framingham State, champions of the MASCAC. The Rams have made the playoffs 10 years in a row now, but they've only won a playoff game once. Perhaps head coach Tom Kelly's third different stint leading the Rams will be the magic chart that they need for a memorable postseason run. So there you have it, our 2021 NCAA Division III Football Championship bracket. We welcome back in our National Committee Chair, Dewey Nats from Wisconsin Stout. Dewey, want to ask you about the biggest challenge in trying to figure out how to pick the 5 most deserving teams for those at-large bids. Can you explain the process and what was so difficult about it this year?
Well, I think this year was extremely difficult in the fact that there was probably at least 10 or 12 teams that deserve those 5 spots. So there's some really, really good football teams that really deserve to be in this tournament. But because of the way it's structured, there's only five that get to go. So our committee looks at all of the RAC and regional ranking information. We look at the entire body of work. We look at everything and try to do the best job we can, deep dive down into it, and select the top 5 teams into the tournament as an at-large. It's not easy. It's difficult. And like I mentioned, we always leave a few teams out that are deserving, but we have to do the best job we can to put the best tournament we can on the board.
And for those that are wondering, is that a unanimous vote process, or do you vote by majority to pick those teams?
It goes region by region. We put a team up from each region. We talk through those teams. Our committee members all vote and decide who the first team should be to get in, and then we keep going through the process until we run out of space, which happens all the time. So.
Last question for you is just about the idea of trying to create some unique matchups regionally that maybe avoid some regular season rematches from teams. How pleased are you with the way you were able to construct the bracket with that in mind?
Yeah, we always keep that in mind, being budget conscious and aware, but we try to put together as good a bracket as we can within the constraints that we work through. And I think there's some really good brackets. I think this tournament lends itself to be in one of the best ever. We have 10 undefeated teams. We have a pile of one-loss teams, and it's there's going to be some great first-round matchups and some really, really interesting second round. And as we go, there's going to be upsets, and we're excited to get this bracket going with games next weekend. So thanks to all that have helped. Our national office help here with J.P. Williams and his team, and our regional committee and our national committee. It's been a process. We think we put a good product on a sheet of paper, so now it's up to the teams and the student athletes to go for it and try to win a national championship. So enjoy.
Dewey Nats, the athletic director at Wisconsin Stout and the chair of this year's national committee. So grateful that you were willing to spend a little time with us here this afternoon. Thank you, and appreciate all your work.
Thank you as well.
Well, we can't wait to get the 2021 postseason started as we work toward crowning a national champion at the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton. If you can, get out, support your local schools. Considering all that we've been through these last 18 months, please make an effort to go out, support these student athletes in person. It's been such a joy for them to play in front of big crowds again. It's been a long time since they've had a chance to compete for a national championship. That wraps up our coverage this afternoon on NCAA.com. I'm Brendan Gulick. Good luck to all 32 teams competing in the playoffs this year. Certainly hope we'll see you in Canton.
There's an energy swelling out beyond the limits of your expectations. A universe where fandom reigns supreme. Once you're in it, it changes you. Instead of one of one, you're one of many. A blissful sea of chaos. Go beyond your limits and enter the NCAA universe. Get your seats today at ncaa.com/tickets.